I call the meeting of the monthly meeting of the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority to order. As soon as I cut my phone off. Excuse me. Again, welcome everyone for being here today. Not only those present here, but those that are listening virtually. We will begin our meeting as we normally do with our roll call and then our minutes, and then our interim director, Brian Donahue, will take us through our agenda.
Great. Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the Commission, our City Council liaison, and attendees. I'll begin with the roll. Mr. Barber?
Here.
Ms. Drury is absent. Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
And Mr. Smith?
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Your next item on your agenda is the meeting minutes from your September 20th, 2022 meeting. These were sent out to you in your package on last Friday, and we are in need of your approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Chair, the minutes are approved
Thank you.
as presented. Your next item is the financial report from the September 2022 period. And we have Ms. Patty Phillips and Ms. Kiera Pope from the Finance Department who will be presenting you the report this morning.
Good morning. I'm going to do, as I usually do, just do a very high-level review, but at any time, if you need more information now or later, don't hesitate to ask. And there has not been much change, I think, since your last meeting. And even since June, there hasn't been a whole lot of change. We have moved the money from the treasurer's fund, so you'll see that change. Well, I guess the big change from June is the huge amounts you have in cash, and you have $8,894,523 in cash. You have a small amount of receivables on some of your leases, land held, air rights. Other assets are security deposits and your property held for resale of $12.5 million. Small amounts of liabilities. You'll notice no long-term debt of any type, and unrestricted net position of $20.5 million. Turning to the statement of revenues and expenses, you've had no sales. We've had some rental income. We've had some expenses of $91,992. I think in there is including some lease space for the Portsmouth at Work program. Investment income of $14,000, of course, because of your large balances you have invested. So the change in net position is a negative $27,873. You also have some charts on the inventory of your land held for resale, your budget to actual, and your listing of grants that I think Brian will go off later. So I went over that a little hurriedly, but if there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And we may also want to think whether you would feel that a quarterly financial statements instead of monthly would be work for you all or not. So just let me know. There's a lot of time that goes into spent on this, and as you can see, not much change from month to month, except of course when you have a big sale, and then you may want that statement.
You done? Oh, thank you. Well, let's deal with that right now. By consensus, her recommendation is for us to go to quarterly. Are you satisfied with monthly?
I would prefer to keep a monthly.
Okay.
I don't have any position either one way. We haven't had a lot of transactions with this fiscal year so far, but
Okay.
I would agree with that. I would be in favor of quarterly, unless there's some huge exceptions that happen in a month that we might
Right.
want to discuss.
You can always request it.
Right.
I agree with the quarterly. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I think the quarterly will be okay, as Mr. Mitchell said. If we need to change that, or we need any further reports, then we can just get in touch with you
Absolutely.
for the next meeting so you can present it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great, we're just waiting for the presentation to load, and move on to your next item, which is the FY22 Business Investment Grant Program update. And this is last year's program. We're still in the process of working to close out a few remaining grants that were awarded. This is as of September 30th. You will recall at your meeting in September, we did approve some extensions to allow additional time for a few of the real estate grant projects to become complete. They are working to do that as we speak, so we still have $75,000 in funding allocated from last year for 3 real estate grant projects. Moving on, your Smart Start Accelerator is the only other open grant program from last year. We do have 3 programs as of, 3 grants as of September 30th that are still being paid out. I believe one of those 3 has actually been paid. So we will be working to close this out over the next several weeks. I'm pleased to share with you that the current FY23 round, which opened, as you're aware, October 1, we have several applications in under review for the 3 different programs. So I think to date we've probably received about a half a dozen, and we're in the process of going through those. That first round will close on the 31st of October, and I'm sure we'll see some businesses looking to get in before the end of the round. So we'll keep you posted on that. We'll report back to you in November on the results, but we're seeing some strong interest again in the programs. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Brian, are we able to kind of nail down where people are finding out about the grant? Is it through the website, word of mouth, communication?
Sure, great question. It's a combination of things. I think that a lot of it is word of mouth. The website certainly generates a lot of traffic. That's where the applications are available, and that's how they are submitted through our website. In addition to that, we've been posting on social media, so Facebook, LinkedIn, our various accounts. We're promoting the programs, and I think that helps as well. But certainly word of mouth is one big avenue for promoting the programs. Your next item, 60 Afton Parkway, 73 Farragut Street in the Craddock community. As the board is aware, 2 months ago we were successful in acquiring these properties in Craddock at auction, and we have been working to clean the properties up. There were some maintenance issues that had been left unattended, so we are working to keep the grass cut and keeping the property clean. In addition to that, there is at 73 Farragut a small shed warehouse building that we are looking at now for having that assessed for demolition and clearance. There are some code issues there that we're going to work to correct. So just want to advise you of that we'll be working to make that happen. There will be some expenses associated with that, and that could include environmental inspection as well as costs for planning for the demolition and the demolition cost itself. So we'll come back to you in November with some updates on what those projected costs will be. But just wanted to make you aware that we are moving forward to clear that property and eventually position that for revitalization, redevelopment. Are there any questions on Craddock? New business, no official new business to discuss other than, I believe in your packets, you should have an announcement for a ribbon cutting that's coming up this Friday. Just want to make sure that you all had received the prior email and were aware that Harbor Trail Brewing Company is having their official grand opening ribbon cutting this coming Friday at 1 p.m. I'm hoping you all are able to attend. I think a few of you have already RSVP'd, but I look forward to seeing you there. The EDA assisted Harbor Trail with a real estate improvement grant for a lot of the build-out work that was necessary at that property to accommodate the brewery. It's a former bank location that sat vacant for a number of years, and they did a really phenomenal job in transforming that into what it is now. And I can tell you the beer must be good because there's crowds out every day after 5 p.m. So I hope to see you there. It will be at 1 o'clock again, so not quite 5. So maybe you can hang around afterwards to perhaps enjoy their offering. That was the only new business item I had. We do have a need for a closed meeting, and I do believe there is a resolution that the vice chair has.
Ready? Okay. I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.3 for the purpose of discussing the acquisition or disposition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding 1130 High Street, 710 Leakin Street, and strategic acquisitions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Item is approved. We are now in closed meeting.
I hereby move that each commissioner certify that, to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion on which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Make a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Motion is approved. We are now in open meeting. And I do believe that we have a need to add an item to the agenda,
Yeah.
and we're in need of a
I'll move that we add the Lincoln Street property to the agenda.
Second.
motion by Mr. Barber, a second by Mrs. Saunders-Smith. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
The item is approved.
Okay.
You need a handbook to interpret the writing? You wrote that pretty fast.
I did, didn't I?
I'm a lawyer, not a doctor. So
You ready? You ready for the motion?
we are ready if you have a motion, yes.
Okay, I move to authorize the execution of a purchase and sale agreement with Big Homies Incorporated for the sale and development of 710 Lincoln Street with a purchase price of $30,000, and to authorize the chair, vice chair, secretary, and their designees to execute such documents as necessary or desirable in furtherance of the transaction, including without limitation a deed of bargain and sale.
Second motion.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted by a vote of 6-0. Okay. We are now on to items submitted by commissioners.
I just have a question. Is the casino still on track for opening in January, and do they have a definitive time frame for,
February.
grand opening, et cetera?
I do believe January is still in the works and in the plans. I do not have a definitive date, but I am sure that as soon as that is established, we will be advised, and that will probably be promoted quite robustly as well. So we can certainly, inform you of that. Since we're on the topic, and I was planning to address this under report backs, but I will just mention, your last meeting, a request was made for a visit and tour of the casino property, and I have reached out to make that request, and I'm just waiting to hear back on that with a date and time frame for a tour to be established.
They told me completion January, maybe hopefully the doors open in February.
In February?
They're working around the clock. You can see when you
Yeah, I
go
know
by
they're
there.
working like little bees out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All night in some cases.
Okay. I do believe, Chair, that we did have an item that Commissioner Brown has
Yes.
added.
On his boondoggle.
Yeah. I had a chance to attend the Virginia Institute for Economic Development last week in Glen Island, Virginia. It was my first retreat since being on the EDA, so it was interesting. I found a lot of information. It was a plethora of information from the speakers that were there. But if we go to the next slide, these were some of the topics and some of the speakers who were there and some of the topics that they covered. And some of these names may be familiar to you veterans, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Smith. Some of you may know some of these people here. But everybody had a great deal of experience when it comes to economic development in their field. They were professors, they've been with EDAs for 30 years or plus, revenue managers at different communities and different localities throughout Virginia. And some of the horror stories that I heard there makes we Portsmouth we're in a good spot. We're in a good spot. But next slide, please. Some notable items of interest that I took away listening to the speakers were the marketing budget for economic development across the state of Virginia is essentially zero. The marketing budget, which is why I ask Ms. Cromwell a lot of times, like, how are people finding out about this? But there's no budget to market and promote some of the things that we do in economic development. And it was made clear there that Medicaid spends more in an hour than economic development, that's spent on economic development all year. And I thought it was a funny note that they spend more money on Viagra for senior citizens than they do on economic development across the state of Virginia. But our neighbor to the south, North Carolina, has a budget of $10 million that they spend annually on economic development. Another points of interest that I took out were site developments. We talked a lot about Craddock and developing sites in different areas in Portsmouth, and some of the things that make Portsmouth hot and Portsmouth attractive and unique. And one of the things with the 5G coming here, they talked about data analytics centers. With us having 5G in that capacity, in the northern areas of Virginia, the data centers are going for $3 million per acre. So that's something that we could think about to, kind of capitalize on the areas that's going to be hubs of data. Do we kind of elevate our prices? And another thing was speed to market. By us being a port city in a high transportation area, speed to market is appealing, an appealing factor for the city of Portsmouth. Can I have the next slide, please? They talked about the 4 pillars of economic development, which I found interesting because I see them in action here, which is business attraction, business retention and expansion, small business and entrepreneurs. Our grant programs, we support a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs. And placemaking and tourism is, Malcolm, kind of like what you were talking about, something that stands out and pops and says Portsmouth. I think from the consensus that I got from the other people at this place, the casino is going to be our placemaker. Is people from other localities are already anxious about Portsmouth's casino popping up, and some of the tourism opportunities associated with the casino and places in Portsmouth. Next, please. So I found this interesting, tourism as an economic engine. I don't know if we have one here in Portsmouth, but a destination management organization, and I found out that there's several on several different levels. Brand USA is the national DMO, where they have people actually in foreign countries that market the United States to get people to travel, people from abroad to travel to the United States. And then aside from the national ones, you have regional ones, which is a combination of state ones, and then local DMOs. And I don't know if Portsmouth has a local DMO or not, but it may be something that we may be interested in looking to. What they do is develop tourism strategies, and developing tourism strategies helps boost economic development. One of the things they're doing is outdoor recreation is gaining a lot of appeal. Golf courses, nature trails, ATV trails, bike tours. We used to have a golf course. We used to have tournaments at our golf course here in Portsmouth, but and they used to attract outside people to come in for these tournaments we had at these courses, but I don't see that happening anymore.
They do.
They still do that?
There's some. It's not as many, but there's still a few.
Okay. Game fishing is another big avenue to explore, especially with the wind turbines going offshore. Game fishing attracts a lot of tourists, and the wind turbines are going to create a new ecosystem for fishing and aquatic life out there. And provide visitor experiences to certain businesses to show how products are made. So they have like expeditions or field trips for students to go through like Frito-Lay factory and see how the products are made. That's something that, we could add on as a tourism attraction. But the most interesting thing that I found, that I learned there, was the VA 250 grant program. The VA 250 program, if you go to the next slide, America is about to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States. So there's a huge incentive going around nationwide for that. And in Virginia, we have what's called VA 250, and it's a program where it's commemorating the 250th anniversary of the United States, but Virginia being one of the initial colonies in America, it's good for them to capitalize on it. Next slide. But as a locality, Portsmouth is not participating in it, and they actually have grant money available for localities that's participating in this VA 250 program. If you could go to the next slide, please. They have grant money available, and it draws tourism here. We have a lot. We have to be part of this VA 250. We got the oldest shipyard in the country. We got the oldest shopping center in the country. And George Washington came through Portsmouth a couple times on his way to the Dismal Swamp. So we got history related to the founding of America, and we need to be involved in that. And the way for us to get involved, the next slide, please, is to form a local committee. And it tells you the local committee should consist of several people from different areas in the city: education, tourism, economic development. And next slide, please. I also found out about some additional marketing grants that they have available. I don't know if we're aware of, but there's a $250,000 DMO marketing grant that's used for special events and festival programs. And festivals and special events, they increase tourism, they increase lodging, they increase visits to your restaurant. So there's an increase in lodging, hotel, and culinary activities go up. And the longer the event is, the longer the stays. So more days equals more stays. But to qualify for this grant, the event must have been held for at least 2 years. And there's another one called Drive Outdoors, which is a sub-grant for outdoor recreation, but it's like ATV trails, jogging trails. You could get grant money to bring those into the community. The $1,500 Love Artwork Program, we have a love sign down at Crawford Street.
Yeah.
Other direction.
We have a love sign, but they give $1,500 grants for people who submit ideas for love signs and, just build a love sign. So that's something we need to capitalize on too. And Industrial Revitalization Fund for blighted communities. From what my understanding is, the state has additional ARPA-funded programs called the Industrial Revitalization Fund. They have $45 million in their budget, and the grants go up to $5 million, but it's a one-to-one match on the grant. So it's opportunity to get money matched to money that you're willing to invest. The next, please. And some other little topics with business retention. How do we keep businesses here in Portsmouth? Showing them customer care. Thinking of companies as part of our investment portfolio, and identifying and acknowledging key businesses in each community. That may be something we want to, consider doing. And who's the crucial business in the Craddock area? Identify them, acknowledge them. Go to different communities and acknowledge local businesses. Host local business days or restaurant week. I don't know if we even have a restaurant week in Portsmouth. I know they have
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, every year.
Okay. But that goes back to the lack of marketing budget. But the National Center for Economic Gardening is a privately held organization. It's like a angel benefactor that donates money to different businesses and helps them grow. So they provide a lot of help to entrepreneurs and new innovative businesses. And what attracts new businesses? Sales and buildings. They want to be able to sell. They want to go into a building that's already made ready for them. They want a workforce that knows how to do the job that they need done. Transportation, they want to be able to get to and from work and enjoy a great quality of life and have a successful business environment. So there's a lot of information that I took from there. I think that's it. Go on more. Yeah, that was it. It was a good experience. I didn't too much care for the hotel. They had a golf course, but the showers didn't work. So I had to go to One Life to take a shower.
Who was this at, in Glen Allen?
Yeah.
Glen, Virginia? Glen
yeah.
Allen, okay.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
But thank you for bringing that back. That was
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
excellent.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes, sir.
The $5 million matching, what was that? What businesses did that cover?
It was for revitalization of industrial areas.
Okay.
So you know that area, Ray, that rusted area that we were talking about that's out in Churchland?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that may benefit from that program. A revitalization of industrial areas. If the city would match, if the city would invest a certain amount, they would match up to a certain amount.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much.
Welcome.
I'm glad you,
Thank you.
I know when Malcolm and I went, you get overwhelmed And it's also a networking opportunity where you can, and then folks want to talk to you, because you do have an economic development and they don't. And, in little smaller cities, and so they're looking for ideas and they, how we do things because of our size, so glad you got something out of it too.
Brian, do y'all have a regional or state organization that kind of goes after, like lobbying for funds for economic development in the state?
Yes, there is a regional organization, which is the Hampton Roads Alliance, that really oversees marketing efforts on behalf of Hampton Roads. There is an organization which was a participant in the VIED conference, and that's the Virginia Economic Developers Association. They're really they do some lobbying, I guess. It's a organization of representing practitioners in the economic development field, and they do lobby on behalf of the organization. So.
We haven't just not successful, it sounds like, from what he's saying.
Well, the state does have marketing resources, which are through the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. So there is some marketing done there. It seems like a lot of that information was tied to tourism, and I'm not really sure. That's got a little bit outside of my realm, so I'm not familiar with all the resources that are devoted to that. Locally, we do have marketing funds that are established, both in our department and then the marketing communications office. So we have local marketing resources that we use to promote economic development, tourism, activities events that are happening here in the city. So there are local resources that we have here, but I'm not really too sure what the state is doing.
Yeah, that was actually the takeaway, Ms. Smith, that the state really didn't provide resources for economic development, and it was up to the localities to be creative in how they funded their marketing and got the word out about initiatives and things that they were doing.
Yeah, but I just thought it interesting you said that North Carolina, the state of North Carolina provided marketing incentives to the economic development.
We would appreciate $10 million.
I know you would. I knew you would. Y'all got to get at it.
So I saw Ms. Chapman taking notes on a VA 250. Okay. That's some good information there.
Yeah, but I think that tourism, we were talking about getting with them anyway. They are a good part. They should be an important part with economic development.
Yes, and on that note, following your September meeting, I did reach out to Mr. Toller in the tourism office. Unfortunately, he was not able to attend this meeting. I believe he's out of the office this week, but he has committed to coming in November, December, based on your agenda, to present an update. So this would be, I think, a good opportunity to follow up and have some conversations about other activities and maybe how we can capitalize on some of the things that are ongoing elsewhere in the state.
Yeah, the VA 250 is not until 2026 actually the actual 250th anniversary, but there are deadlines that we need to meet in order to qualify for grants and be considered a partner city or a city as part of the program.
I think it was January 2023.
24th, 20-something, yeah.
Yeah, 23.
Yeah. So that's not that far away.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else have members to bring? Okay, one of the things that we do need to be preparing for now, as we normally do, is our annual retreat, and I'm gonna ask you again for topics to submit them to the Vice Chair, Mr. Mitchell. Any items that you think that we need to talk about at the retreat, and I know some of the things like Mr. Brown brought back, whether or not, and we're hitting at it like what we're doing in Craddock, but that's something I know because of that I've think that we need to talk about, how, Craddock has taken some extra steps to organize themselves, but we as a EDA, and then I just heard you talk about some revitalization money, whether or not we want to, consider, talk about right now. We don't have the resources to go full bore with it, but talk about whether we are interested in, some economically, revitalizations in some communities, around the city. And if it's a way that we can do that, I think we ought to talk about it and, get some information on the legalities and how that will work. So that's one of the things I think we need to talk about, and I'll send you something on it too that we could put on the agenda to talk about. My addition.
Did we come up with a date for the retreat yet?
No, not yet. No.
We might want to look at possible either partnerships or acquisitions for the revitalization fund. One that comes to mind would be the old community college property on the corner. That might be an opportunity for the revitalization fund.
I don't unless that's been sold. I mean, it's been on a contract for months. That's been under control of the housing authority.
I understand, but in other words, that type of the funding of that is dependent upon a planned reuse of it and a partner for the there in that case it's under public ownership and there is a potential reuse. And the question is there a gap in the funding for the development of it, which could be filled by the, IRL funding opportunity? And I don't know, but you're right. It's in the housing authority's purview. But
I think what you mean is that's an example of what we can partner with them if they haven't made any definite plans. Like in that case, they have, but there may be some others, and that's the kind of thing that we need to look at. Where I'm coming from as far as venturing out into projects like that. Hopefully, like I was told years ago when I was on council, is that we don't have a lot of money to do things, but we need to be drawing and attracting folks that do have money and that where we can't afford it, they have the money to do it. And those things are like that. Just like as the area over there, Sugar Hill, and I know probably half of that is probably undevelopable. That's why we bought some of that property right on the water there. But there's still a big parcel over there that could be developed. There's only about maybe 4 or 5 houses that are left over there where folks are living in actually, and that's a pretty big area over there that's right adjoining the port. So and it's a lot of those houses properties are still privately owned. So if everybody knows the area I'm talking about over there. Off Constitution back over that way. It's called Sugar Hill. We used to call it Penner's Point, but the name for it is Sugar Hill. And there's at least most of the houses have been torn down already, but there's only about 4 or 5 left. We bought the outlying parcels on the water that were bordering the wetlands and that was subject to some severe flooding. We purchased those so that they wouldn't try to develop those. Any other thing to come before us, or?
Michael, when do you want the information? So
We don't have a date, but I would say in a week.
In a week?
in a week.
The retreat is like
Do you have a date?
March or
April.
April. So I would say at least by the end of the year. I mean, you kind of pressing, man.
You say now and you'll get it by the end of the year. Yeah.
Good gracious.
Whatever comes to your mind, feel free to send to me at any time prior to the
Yeah, by the end of the year at least. So, and thanks everyone again for. That's
We do
it?
have some report.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No
I'm
problem
ready
whatsoever.
I'm ready to go.
Just a few items to touch on very real quick. The Starbase Victory Launching Future Awards ceremony was held on October 6th. The EDA was a sponsor of that event, and there were several of you in attendance, as well as the city manager. And just want to report on the event, and certainly Chair, Vice Chair, Mr. Brown, and City Manager, if you have any comments, please do include them. But fantastic event, really showcasing what the Starbase program has been doing for the last, I want to say, 25 years. We have at your place, for those of you who weren't in attendance, just a takeaway from the event. That was something that we wanted to bring to you. It really was a very impactful ceremony to hear some of the stories about the children who participated in that program over the years, and to really see that they've gone on to pursue careers in STEM and have been successful. And I think that it has instilled in them the notion that there are things that they can do that are, in terms of employment opportunities, career paths that traditionally, many would not be exposed to. So really a worthwhile program. We're excited about that continuing and support that we can provide here through our organizations to help with their mission. They've had some leadership changes, some retirements that are coming up, so I think there will be some changes there, but certainly a great program. So thank you for sponsoring and attending if you were in attendance. We also have a update on Black Brand. You, at your September meeting, awarded a grant in support of Black Brand's efforts here in Portsmouth as it relates to small business and entrepreneurship opportunities. There was a request for some reporting and information from that organization. We do have that. We'll be emailing that out to you. It's quite a large report, so I would look for that in your inbox later today. And then lastly, last evening at the City Council meeting, the City Council did approve of a property transfer of 3 parcels that are on Turnpike Road, 2410, 2414, and 2416 Turnpike Road to the EDA for disposition. This is to support an offer that came in the early summer of this year for a trucking company, LBC Transportation, which the EDA at the time agreed to pursue moving forward with City Council's authorization. So that happened last night, so we will be working towards bringing that project to fruition. There are some rezoning and conditional use permit requirements that the purchaser is working through, so we are going to be supporting them as they do that. Obviously, there's a process for that. It will have to go back before the City Council, but it's heading in a forward direction at this time, so just wanted to brief you on that. And I believe that was the last item I had, Chair.
Okay. Thanks again for everyone's attendance and participation, and we look forward to continuing what we can do to make our city better and to make EDA a pivotal organization in the city. So that being said, thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.